When we're thinking about narcissistic personality disorder as a kind of split personality schizophrenia that takes place in this strange spectrum of extremely entitled, aggressive, bullying, what we think of as classically narcissistic, egomaniacal, aggression, domination, demands for submission, and laughing at your pain and zero empathy. That's what we all think of it, and that's how we tend to talk about it in the narcissism space. But the other side of it, the yin to that yang, is the fawning response. So that's the fight response from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. But in every narcissistic personality, so that's the primary response is fight, but there's a secondary response, which is fawning. This is the charming side, the seeming empathic side, the capacity to demonstrate vulnerability, to cry, to say sorry. This is a standard issue narcissist. This is not a subgenre of narcissistic personality disorder. Please understand that. In my life, when I've been dealing with people who have narcissistic personality disorder, and I have these arguments, these conversations, because inevitably it leads to conflict. You can't avoid conflict with somebody with narcissistic personality disorder because they don't want peace, they want problems. That's how they feed. That's why it's in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, these are called dramatic personality disorders. The cluster B is dramatic. It seeks drama. It seeks conflict in order to experience the juice of life. They draw a kind of supply from conflict itself. And you'll notice when you're in conflict with them that they flip between one state and another state. I give this example regularly. Just look at texts. You'll be able to say, that's a fight text, that's a fawn text, that's a fight text, that's a fawn text. If we use the Karpman triangle from transactional analysis, you have the persecutor, you have the victim, and then you have the rescuer. And you'll see them go persecutor, 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 victim, victim, victim. Why? Is this a split personality response? No, these are strategies. They're just strategies. It's normal for narcissistic personality disordered people to cycle through different states, depending on whether they're feeling narcissistic elation or narcissistic depletion. And that can happen inside of a minute. And that could be that might not be you that's giving them narcissistic elation and dropping them into narcissistic depletion. It's less likely to be you or some external event. It's more likely to be their own superego. So the egotism of narcissism is a little bit difficult to understand. We have to understand that there really is no healthy, functioning Freudian ego per se there. That's been destroyed. But there is a massive, highly overactive superego. And what's the superego do? The superego is issuing kind of morality-based injunctions on how to behave. But of course, in some of us, and people with complex post-traumatic stress, people with PTSD, and certainly people with narcissistic personality disorder, it's giving commands and injunctions from an immoral space, sometimes from an amoral space, and sometimes from an immoral space. So in the immoral space, the twisted morality of the narcissist, of the psychopath, of some borderlines and some histrionics, up is down, left is right, and good is bad. They invert truth. They invert truth and falsehood. They invert good and bad. They invert reality itself. And this is why when you're interacting with them and you're there going, this is a normal adult. I'm going to have a normal adult conversation and I'm going to keep interacting with them. You're actually, in a sense, you're being hypnotized or entrained into craziness. And you'll eventually start to go crazy. You will become a lunatic. With extended exposure over time, your emotions will be off the charts. Your own traumas will all raise up to the surface and be massively inflamed. If it goes on longer than that, you start developing illnesses, you'll gain weight, you'll lose weight, you get insomnia. Nearly everybody I know, and people say in the comments on this video, immune system related disorders go through the roof. Tell us in the comments. People who have immune system based disorders that are massively inflamed by exposure to narcissistic abuse. It makes sense. And all of this reminds me of a puppy. I was once asked by probably the most of two partners that I've had in the misfortune of having that would probably get the clinical diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, the worst one, the most malignant one. The relationship was coming to an end. I was getting sick of her. She had sent me to therapy because I was the crazy one, and my therapist was helping me to dig my way out of the relationship. She sensed that. She sensed that I was getting better because I was becoming harder and harder for her to provoke. And so she said to me, oh, I'm on this website, because she was an animal rights type of activist type person. And she said, on this website, they house puppies temporarily. And there's this beautiful puppy. And they just asked, because we had a big house in Portugal, they got us a nice house in Portugal together. She said, they asked me, because we have space, would we take on a puppy for just 3 weeks? And I said, yeah, sure, we can take on a puppy for 3 weeks. That's not a problem. Now, at the time, we already lived with a golden retriever from Galicia. It was a Spanish golden retriever, 32 kilograms. He was a big boy. And the puppy arrived, and we took him into the house. Now, this puppy was actually of an unknown age. My best guess, and when I spoke to other dog breeding people who met this puppy, he was probably about 10 to 11 months old, which is young, but this was a cross between a pit bull and a Rhodesian Ridgeback. So one of these things is bred for killing bears, and the other one is bred for killing lions. And even at 11 months old, he was massively strong. He took me as his master, not the girl I was living with. He assumed that I was the leader of the pack and I was the master. He became dangerous. We had to give him back, and I think ultimately he was destroyed. He'd been left in the street. He'd been beaten. He'd been really, really mistreated. And he was what I would consider to be could have been a very, very good dog. But by the time we got him, he'd already gone. The 32 kilogram golden retriever would play fight with him. He was a dope, a big, friendly, dopey golden retriever who liked play fighting. And I swear to you, this half pit bull, half Rhodesian Ridgeback breed that was probably half his weight could flip him in the air. He could grab him by his, golden retrievers have all this skin, grab him by that skin and he would flip him. He could flip him onto his back. This happened a few times and I had to break them apart, and then I said, okay, we have to give this dog back. We took him to the beach, and any dogs that ran towards us, he would go into this, like, he was back on the African savannas, and he was like, oh, a predator's coming, and he would smash into these little dogs. And I just said, okay, we have to get rid of him. Now, why am I always reminded of this puppy? This poor animal was in such a traumatized state that he was only ever in aggression and domination. He would steal the dog who lived there. He would steal the bed. He would growl at my girlfriend for space. He would growl when there was food in the house. If I came in and I shouted at him, expecting him pretty much to ignore me, he would lay on his back and pee himself. So he had two states: maximal aggression or total piss yourself, and he would lay on his back, expose his belly and expose his throat and do this to me. So he was in either total submission or he was in total domination, and there was nothing in between. He was a beautiful, beautiful animal. Could have been a great dog, but dangerous because he was already broken. He had two states: total aggression, total submission. It's not healthy. You can't have a person who's just in fight or fawn mode. Neither state is healthy. None of the CPTSD response states are healthy. You can't freeze in a healthy way. You can't flight in a healthy way. You can't fight or fawn in a healthy way. People will say, oh, I like being a codependent. I'm an empath. I like to be giving. Being giving is fine if you are giving from a place where you're a whole, healed, healthy adult. If you're giving or submitting or fawning from a place of fear and anxiety and guilt and shame, if you don't serve, that ain't healthy. And you can say you're being a good Christian or a good Buddhist, or you're being selfless, or you're being spiritual. It's all nonsense. It's all total nonsense. The only place you can give from is a place where you have something. So you must protect yourselves first and foremost. If you would like to know more about how to deal with somebody in your life who has narcissistic personality disorder, who's flipping between these schizophrenic states of fight and fawn, I have a course for you. It's called Break Narcissistic Possession. And what it does is it diminishes the power and the emotional charge this person and the trauma they've put you through has in your life. So if you're in a struggle, if you're in a conflict with somebody, you've got a court case going with somebody, you've got shared custody maybe, or a legal battle ongoing, this is a good course for you because it will really diminish the emotional power this person has over you. You've heard the expression, don't let somebody live inside of your head rent free. This will stop that from happening. If you're interested in that course, there's a link available from here below. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Thank you.